What makes someone an icon? Is it image? Is it ability? Is it humanitarianism? Or is it something harder to pin down, like being the right person to make the right moves at the right time? Maybe it's everything. Well, for car nerds all over the world, myself and everyone else here included, Paul Walker is an icon. His role in the Fast and Furious franchise made him the face for car culture in Hollywood and beyond. And for a lot of us, he was like the first car guy we saw that wasn't wearing freaking jean shorts. But who was Paul Walker really? Let's find out. It's time to get you up to speed on Paul Walker. A huge thanks to CarParts.com for sponsoring today's video. Well, Carl, your truck is 100% fixed. What are you doing, dude?
Sorry, cousin. I was just saying goodbye to the California moon. Can't believe it's my last day as a donut intern.
Listen, man, even though you destroyed my Jetta, I sure had a good time fixing up your truck with the help of CarParts.com. They made it quick and easy to find all the parts that I needed.
All right. Well, I guess it's time for me to go.
Wait, that's yours?
Yep. This old gopher's all mine. And this is yours.
The keys to your truck?
The keys to your truck, cousin. You know, we had so much fun fixing that old girl, changing the headlights, fixing the brakes. Heck, I launched myself into the air. Remember that? I think it's only right that you take it over. Be the custodian of our beautiful pickup.
I can't take your truck.
You know, I stayed out in California here to make sure that you got the truck that you deserve.
Wow, honestly, buddy, thank you for this. And remember, if you ever break down, head on over to CarParts.com to get any parts for any job.
Sayonara, cousin. Take care.
These are house keys. Carl!
Me mom, coming home!
Now, when we started writing this video, we made sure that we did not want it to be about the Fast and the Furious or somehow turn into a character study of Brian O'Connor, but Paul Walker was uniquely qualified to play a laid-back California car guy. Why? Because he was one. Paul William Walker IV, PWW4, was born on September 12, 1973 in Glendale, California. He and his 4 younger siblings grew up in the small town of Sunland, situated right next to SoCal driving mecca Tujunga Canyon. Paul's mom, Cheryl, worked in the fashion industry, while Paul's dad, Paul III, was a contractor, a writer, and a photographer. When it came to writing and taking pics, Papa Walker focused on his life's passion, choppers. And he regularly contributed to motorcycle publications like Easy Rider and Street Chopper magazine. And we'll get back to that in a minute, all right? Paul's parents jump-started his acting career at the age of 2 years old, getting him small parts in commercials.
This is my son, Jonathan. His bottom is very close to my heart.
Paul took to it, acting throughout his entire childhood with small television roles until he was cast in his first movie, I shit you not, a trauma film. The same guys that made Toxic Avenger. This thing was called Monster in the Closet. He was 10 years old, and check out this clip. I'm pretty sure that they don't have a trademark department.
I got family.
Paul was then cast in his first regular TV role at 13 in the short-lived sitcom Throb. I know this was like a while ago. It's probably like late 80s, but I think Throb still meant the same thing as it does now, right? Here's a clip of Throb.
As you get older, your aim will get better.
Now, when he wasn't acting, young Paul discovered his first true love. Typical of any Southern California upbringing, he loved ice hockey. JK is surfing, dude. He figured out that this acting thing could pay for surfboards and travel expenses, so this is what he was gonna do forever. His teen years were a blur of acting, hitting the waves and getting into mischief around Sunland. About as cool of an upbringing as you can imagine. Plus, he's so handsome. So handsome. His life's already cool. We haven't even talked about cars yet.
What?
Dude, he's like the most handsome guy. Those eyes? Paul's dad being so into motorcycles, you might imagine that this passion was passed down to Paul, sparking a love for anything with a motor and 2 wheels. Well, you'd be wrong. Papa Walker got rid of all his motorcycles when Paul was born and didn't want his kids to have anything to do with bikes because they're dangerous. He'd lost a few friends in motorcycle accidents and understandably shielded the children from that lifestyle. And according to Paul's younger brother, Cody, who is a friend of ours and we talked to when putting this video together, their dad raised his kids to be terrified of motorcycles so that they'd stay away from them. Now, while Paul would eventually own some dirt bikes and ATVs, it was actually his old Grandpa George who turned him into a car guy. Grandpa George was Paul's maternal grandfather, an old school racer from a bygone era who always had a racing story to tell, and Paul always listened. Grandpa George's stories about the trips to the Bonneville Salt Flats, drag races, and other hot rodder hooliganism lit the car nerd fire inside of a young Paul. And while he would later become known for JDM and Euro cars like GTRs and lightweight M3s, Paul started out as a muscle car guy and he wanted to do some hot rodding of his own. Maybe he wanted it a little too much, as Paul would later total his dad's Chevy a few blocks from their house. Let me know in the comments how many of you have wrecked your parents' car an embarrassingly short distance from your house. I have. I ran into a curb in my stepdad's maroon Honda Accord and broke an axle
when I was 14.
All of the Walker clan acted when they were young, but Paul was the one who stuck with it until adulthood. His confidence was his greatest asset in an audition, and as someone who's been on a bunch of auditions,
yeah, you gotta be confident.
He radiated an extremely relaxed energy, as if he didn't even care whether he got the role. And that might have been true. He'd probably rather be surfing. But casting directors loved it, and in the 90s, Paul's acting career gained a lot of momentum. The late 90s saw Paul's career really take off. Paul's first leading role in a feature film was 1998's Meet the Deedles, portraying Phil Deedle, a slacker surfer turned park ranger, bumbling around Yellowstone with his twin brother. Meet the Deedles had Steve Zahn in it, one of my favorite actors ever. Love him. But Paul's twin brother was not played by his real brother, Cody Walker, who looks just like him. It was played by a guy named Steve Van Werner, who I imagine was the most stoked when they showed him Paul's headshot and were like, hey, everyone thinks you look like this guy. Here's Paul, here's Cody, here's Steve Van Werner. Just saying. Shouts to Steve Zahn. I'd love to have you on a D-list. Hit me up, dude. Blue check to blue check. Next, he starred along A-listers Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon in Pleasantville, which is an awesome movie. Then there was the box office hits Varsity Blues, I Don't Want Your Laugh, She's All That with Rachel Lee Cook and Freddie Prinze Jr. Look at the cast of these movies, you guys. Paul was in an amazingly talented group of peers. Then, in 2000, the call came. Paul was cast in the most important movie of his career so far. The summer smash hit, sequel spawning phenomenon known as The Skulls, starring Pacey from Austin's Creek. Paul starred along fellow late 90s, early 2000s heartthrob Joshua Jackson in this college campers secret society thrill fest. Actually holds up surprisingly well. Leslie Bibb is great. The Skulls made 50 million bones, no pun intended, at the box office, but that's not why it's important to Paul's story. It was directed by a guy named Rob Cohen, and he and Paul hit it off really well on set. Rob loved Paul's attitude and work ethic and filled Paul in on his next project. Rob said, hey Paul, I think I got a movie for you that you might really dig. And Paul's like, oh yeah? What's it about? Rob goes, fast cars, hot chicks, and you get a gun, and you're an undercover cop. And Paul's like, dude, I'm in. That movie, of course, was Redline. Redline was a heist thriller set in the street racing scene of Southern California. The story was based on a Vibe magazine article called Racer X by a journalist named Ken Lee. Racer X depicted the exploits of street racers in New York City, but Redline would take place in Southern California with an undercover detective story twist. And to prepare for his role, Paul immersed himself in the world of illicit street racing, heading out to meets in the middle of the night, seeing firsthand how real street racers operated. Paul appreciated how different the cars were from the ones that he had grown up lusting after. These outlaw racers weren't driving big old muscle cars like his Grandpa George. They were driving Integras, Eclipses, Civics. This was Paul's first step in the world of tuning cars, and he loved it. In retrospect, Redline was a big risk for Universal Pictures. It was a $38 million car movie helmed by a director whose previous work included a Bruce Lee biopic and Dragonheart, where Sean Connery played a dragon.
How will you make a living, Knight? Shut up!
And this cast didn't have any big names. Paul was probably the most well-known actor in the cast, followed by Vincent Diesel, who at that point had voiced Iron Giant, did a bit part in Saving Private Ryan, and starred in the sci-fi action flick Pitch Black, where now that I'm saying those things, those are all very, very good movies. Those are really good. That's a really good first three. Now, I don't even think that this movie would get made today. From the outside, the only thing that this movie had going for it was the presumption that street racing was on the edge of the cultural zeitgeist. And that's it. A few months before the release of Redline, the studio changed the title to the one that we know today, The Fast and the Furious. Studio execs may have had some doubts at the back of their minds, but those were quashed as soon as the debut screening was over. Apparently, everyone in the audience knew there was going to be a sequel as the credits rolled. I mean, how could you not? Have you watched that movie recently? Work on the sequel began almost immediately.
Let's do this!
But this is where the franchise's troubled history begins. The Fast and the Furious was a huge hit at the box office, raking in $207 million on a $38 million budget. Naturally, and I'm on their side here, the cast wanted more money in the sequel. I mean, they earned it.
No crust.
And I have it on good authority that Universal did not want to give Vin Diesel more money, so they did not invite him back to play Dom Toretto. But Paul loved the role of Brian O'Connor so much that he agreed to the same pay rate that he got in the first movie. Finally, the studio hired Tyrese Gibson to co-star, and Too Fast, Too Furious was another box office smash. But this success was, ironically, not great for Paul's role in the franchise. Universal figured that since audiences still saw Too Fast with only one original cast member, the next movie could just have no returning cast members at all. An entirely new cast of lesser-known actors would be paid less. So that's what Universal decided to do.
Why don't you nice boys let your cars do the talking?
Tokyo Drift featured an entirely new cast in an entirely new setting. Now right now you're probably thinking, hey, I thought you said you didn't want this video to end up being all about the Fast and the Furious, and you're right to think that, but this franchise was such a big part of Paul's life. So much that according to Cody Walker, his brother, Paul was crushed that the studio decided not to include him. Now here's an actor, he's a real car guy who's immersed himself in the scene that his movies are helping to define. He's researched and decided a lot of the cars, and now the people making the movies tell him that he's not in the movies anymore? That sucks. And Paul wasn't the only one that thought it sucked. Test screen audiences wondered where the heck all the actors that they loved from the first two movies were. Why is this called the Fast and Furious at all if there aren't any people from the Fast and the Furious? Some people even blamed the actors themselves for not being in the movie. Word got out to the general public that none of the original cast were returning for the threequel, and angry fans sent letters to Paul accusing him of being too good for the fan base that has supported the series. But they had no idea that Paul had zero word in the decision. He was understandably pissed at Universal, and the studio was starting to wonder if they had maybe messed up. Yeah, I think they did. So to salvage the situation, they devised a plan to shoot a new scene for the end of the film. Brian would show up, connecting the previous movies to Tokyo Drift, and in the process tell the audience that a sequel with the familiar characters was on the way. The box office would be saved! Paul was at a funeral in Oregon when he got the call, and was in no hurry to go back. So Universal made up with Vin Diesel in the form of a fat check, and that's why Tokyo Drift ends the way that it does. Unfortunately, no amount of reshoots could save Tokyo Drift from being kind of a flop, bringing $159 million, which was $77 million less than Too Fast. I'm no Hollywood big shot, I tried to be for years, but usually you want your sequels to make more money, not less. Could it have been more successful if the original cast members were included? Yeah, probably. But the lower revenue and even lower critical reception put the franchise on hold. And in the meantime, Paul had roles in other films like 8 Below, Running Scared, and Flags of Our Fathers. Now, something that made Paul stick out in Hollywood was the fact that he didn't want to stick out. Despite being a 90s heartthrob and the star of 2 huge blockbusters, Paul wasn't the kind of guy who wanted to go out on the town and be seen. Most of the time he drove a pickup, and when he did want to have fun, it wasn't behind the wheel of a flashy exotic. It was something only a car nerd at the time would know was awesome. Like his prized R34 Skyline GTR, kind of like the one Brian drove at the beginning of Too Fast. At the time, this generation of Skyline was not technically legal in the US, but Paul bought the Sonic Silver 1999 V-Spec from a company called Motorex, whose entire business model was built around importing R34s and making them street legal. The Motorex story is an entirely different can of drum-flavored worms. We made a whole podcast about it. I'll put a link down below so you guys can listen to it. It's fascinating. And thank God, Paul was finally able to make his return to the Fast and the Furious series in 2009 with Fast and Furious. No thes this time. A soft reboot in a time before soft reboots were the norm. The original cast was back this time. And to no one's surprise, the 4th installment absolutely demolished at the box office. It made $360 million. That's almost $1 million for a day. Fast and Furious took the series from domestic hit to worldwide sensation, allowing Universal to compete with other monster franchisees like Harry Potter, The Hunger Games, and Marvel. But Paul was still Paul. While each Fast movie grew his star, Paul continued to stay out of the tabloids, only talking with the press when contractual obligations mandated that he do so to promote the movies. He was way more famous than he had ever planned on being, with more money than he knew what to do with. But when disaster struck a small nation, Paul figured out what to do with it. On January 12, 2010, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake decimated Haiti, causing 200,000 deaths. Images of this awful natural disaster shocked the world and sent Paul into action. He knew that he was in a position of vast financial privilege, and that meant that he had a moral obligation to help. Within days, he maxed out a credit card buying supplies and was on a plane to the neighboring Dominican Republic to assist in the relief effort. Just 5 days after the quake, Paul and a few of his buddies were on the ground passing out the supplies that they had brought with them. This was the birth of Reach Out Worldwide, Paul's disaster response organization exclusively funded by Paul's acting paychecks. This dude doesn't fundraise. Let me say that again. Paul Walker's disaster response organization was exclusively self-funded, as in all of the money came out of his bank account. Paul decided that running his own organization was the right course of action, figuring that if he worked with an existing charity, they would probably use him for press instead of letting him help out in the field. He also wanted to avoid using government grants, as those can sometimes have stipulations on which countries you can and can't use the money on. There's a lot of celebrities that want people to think that they're involved in big causes, but Paul actually was, and he used his own 2 hands and his own money to get things done. And to date, Reach Out has completed 61 deployments in 61 different countries, powered by 1,778 volunteers. That's pretty cool, right? Back to the car movies. Under new director Justin Lin, the Fast and Furious series took a turn into a more action-oriented direction. And as a result, the movies made even more money. Fast 5 doubled the previous installment at the box office, raking in 626 million bones. Furious 6 added 150 mil on top of that. Paul and his co-stars were certified mega celebrities recognized around the world. The kid from Sunland, who just wanted to surf and drive a muscle car like his grandpa, was the face of one of the biggest movie franchises in the history of movies. By every measure, Paul had made it huge, but that didn't stop him from driving a Toyota Tundra pickup truck to work every day. On November 30th, 2013, tragedy struck. We knew it was coming. Paul was on a drive with Roger Rodas, who was Paul's partner in a tuning shop venture called Always Evolving. Paul was riding shotgun in a Porsche Carrera GT, a notoriously difficult to drive mid-engine supercar. And we know the rest. The news sent shockwaves through the car and movie worlds, but instead of focusing on Paul's passing, I'd like to keep his legacy in mind, all right? Paul's charity, Reach Out Worldwide, is still very active today, run by his brother, Cody Walker, and his wife, Felicia. You can actually support Reach Out by attending any of the totally badass Fuel Fest car shows that they host in different spots around the world a few times a year. And of course, you can always donate money to Reach Out as well. I'm gonna put a link in the description down below. No pressure, but if you're gonna donate to something, this is a good one. For car nerds all over the world, Paul Walker is an icon, but he's also a man of contradiction. He starred in some of history's biggest movies, but he hated being famous. He could afford to buy any exotic car he wanted, but instead filled his garage with old Nissans and drove his truck to set. And at the end of the day, Paul Walker was a man with a big heart who loved his family and just wanted to serve. Thank you guys for watching this video. It's really close to our heart. Paul is a huge influence on what we have going on here, and we're close with his brother, and it was really meaningful to tell his story, and I hope you guys liked it. Big announcement. The Donut Underground has a shirt now.
You got a shirt!
Now, if you don't already know, the Donut Underground is our membership club for
super fans.
members. Get access to behind the scenes videos, a Discord server, exclusive stickers, merch discounts, and now there's a shirt, a freaking shirt. It has the same colorway as our new stickers, which members voted on a couple of months ago. You get input into what we make. The shirt is $25 and only available to Underground members. To find out how to join, click the join button down below on this video or on our channel page, or for iOS users, check out the link in the description.
We got a shirt!
Hit the subscribe button and the like button. We have merch available at donutmedia.com. Really, you should check out a Fuel Fest event. Maybe we'll do something with them in the future. Let us know down below if you want that to happen. I love you.